Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Councillor Stephen Holliday. I'm the chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. We have quorum. I'm now calling meeting number 14 to order. Welcome, everyone. There are 4 members present. Councillor Crisanti has reached out to me to let me know that he is dealing with a homicide and shooting in his community this morning, and he may be late. So we'll begin. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at the Etobicoke Civic Center in the Council Chamber. The meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. If you're registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order that they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Etobicoke York Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, the City Clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on the CMP, the Clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your devices. I also wanted to remind you to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at etcc@toronto.ca to help with the motions. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please indicate the item number and the nature of the interest. Seeing none, we will proceed. May I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our meeting on May 13th, 2024? Moved by Councillor Morley. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. All right, the first item is EY 14.1 Jane Finch Secondary Plan and Urban Design Guidelines Final Report. That will be held for speakers. Next item is EY 14.2 1911 Finch Avenue West Jane Finch Mall Official Plan Amendment and Zoning Amendment Applications Decision Report for approval. There are 2 speakers. We'll hold that item. EY 14.3 2400 Eglinton Avenue West Official Plan Amendment and Zoning Bylaw Amendment Applications Decision Report approval. There are 2 speakers, so that will be held. EY 14.4 is 40 to 60 St. Lawrence Avenue, Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendments Application Appeal Report, Ward 3. Councillor Morley.
We're moving staff recommendations on this item, please.
Councillor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 14.5. 1001, 1007, 1011, 1037, the Queensway Public Art Plan. Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're excited to have some new public art coming to the space, and we'll be moving the staff recommendations on this item.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 14.6, 58 Tallon Road, application to remove 2 private trees. Madam Clerk, I'm going to hold that to see if we have a speaker come, and we'll deal with that in order. EY 14.7, we have speakers registered, and that is 94 Cowley Avenue, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. EY 14.8 is the Mimico Neighbourhood Mobility Plan. We have 2 speakers registered, so we'll hold that item. EY 14.9 is 1030 to 1040 Islington Avenue, stop controls. Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're just making this official. The stop signs are already in place, and we'd like to follow staff recommendations.
Deputy Mayor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 14.10 Pritchard Avenue, accessible parking spaces. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I'll move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 1411 Parking Amendments, Lakeshore Drive. Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff, thank you for your good work. You make it easy. We'll be following staff recommendations on this item as well.
Councillor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 14.12, 16 to 26 Earlington Avenue and 4161 to 4169 Dundas Street West construction staging area. Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're pleased all to confirm all requirements have been fulfilled here, and we'll be moving staff recommendations. Is that anyway?
I need to move that be added to the agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. My apologies, Deputy Mayor Morley. You're moving the staff
I am.
the recommendations from the report. All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. We also have to add EY 14.13. That is parking regulation amendments, King Street between George Street and Rosemount Avenue. So to add to the agenda, all those in favor, any opposed, that carries. And then on the item, Councillor Nunziata, they're your recommendations, I guess.
Move the recommendations.
Councillor Nunziata moves the recommendations. All those in favor, any opposed, that carries. Okay, back to the top of the agenda is going to be EY 14.1. Jane Finch Secondary Plan and Urban Design Guidelines, final report. We do have speakers. And our first speaker is Christine Lay. Is Christine available? Do we have Christine online? We do not. Okay, we'll check again in a moment. David Mijaya Monaco, hopefully I pronounced that right. Is David available? Not online. Okay. Troy Boudou. Do we have Troy here? We do not. Oh, okay. Take the glasses off.
Okay. Quick question. This is for the secondary plan that we spoke on last time?
Correct. This is EY 14.1, Jane Finch Secondary Plan and Urban Design Guidelines, and yeah, it was deferred.
Okay. But I spoke on this last time, so I don't have to speak on it. Huh?
To the best of my memory, I remember your name, but
Yeah. I did speak on it
a few
last
months
time.
ago.
I
you
spoke
want-
on it in the last meeting.
Yeah,
me
did
and
you
the
want to
rest
speak
of us.
again?
No, I think I'm
Okay.
fine.
All right, well, thank you. Our next speaker is Anna K. Brown. Anna K. Thank you. Amar Singh? Is Amar Singh available? So I'll just go back through the list. Christine Lay? David Maya Monaco? Troy we heard from? Amar Singh? Anna K. Brown? Anyone else? Okay. All right. Well, that's the end of the speaking period. Questions of staff? Seeing none, to speak. Oh,
Mr. Chair, if I can we
Councillor
just,
Peruzza.
I do have several motions which I just want to go through with the planning staff. Can we stand it down
Sure.
for a bit and come back? to it,
We'll
please?
stand down item 1. Okay. Our next item then, EY 14.2, 1911 Finch Avenue West, which is the Jane Finch Mall. Official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications, decision report approval. We have 2 speakers. The first is Emily Reisman from Urban Strategies. Welcome, Emily. Morning. Welcome to the Community Council. You have 5 minutes. I'll let you get set up, and you start as soon as you're ready.
I get assistance with connecting the,
Okay, Mike's on his way.
pardon?
Mike is on his way.
Thank you.
I have a question, I guess a point of order, Mr. Chair, while they get set up. Just out of curiosity for my own education, when we defer an item, does the speakers list sort of migrate over with the original item as well? Or would the speakers have had to re-register?
I'll let the clerk
you.
respond, but
Thank you.
Generally, they would have had to re-register. We did hear them at the last meeting. This was a stat item. New material was added to the agenda, so we included them just in case they had additional material to share based on the new material that staff have shared.
Got it. Thank you. Very helpful. Apologies. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily, all set?
Yes, thank you so much.
Please
Good
proceed.
morning, Chair and members of Community Council. My name is Emily Reisman. I'm a planner with Urban Strategies here on behalf of the landowners of the Jane Finch Mall. We are here in support of the staff recommendations to bring forward a site and area-specific official plan policy to guide the long-term evolution of the mall site and a site-specific zoning bylaw to implement the first phase focused along Finch. I've also submitted a letter on this item, and I beg your indulgence if there's a bit of repetition. The mall has been a fixture in the Jane Finch neighbourhood since the earliest days of the community's development and remains in the same family business to this day. Since 2021, the team has been active in the community to plan for this strategic site's future. The proposal in front of you was prepared with significant community input, some of the statistics of which are on the screen right now. And we believe that this process has been almost unprecedented for a private development application in this area. Our engagement program that we called JFM Plus reached thousands of local residents, community groups, local stakeholders, including seniors and youth, through small group meetings, community meetings, drop-ins, open houses, access to information in a regularly staffed storefront in the mall, as well as a dedicated website. Also, notices of the city's meeting were also sent to an expanded circulation, including the whole secondary plan study area. None of this could have been possible without the dedication of 15 members of a community animator team comprised of local residents who reached deep into their own networks to create connections and facilitate discussion on the site and its future. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank that team publicly in this forum for that important work. The work that they did and the input received through the process has helped shape the application before you, a plan which will maintain the site as a community anchor and a place of connection that supports the community's daily needs. Staff have recommended approval of a site and area-specific policy to guide the long-term evolution of the mall site, which sits at 2 LRT stops, securing new public streets, parks, and other open spaces, and a zoning bylaw amendment to implement the first phase, which is illustrated on the screen. That focuses on the Finch frontage, will also bring new open spaces, parks, and community amenities, such as a daycare and community space. This means that the mall will not transition all at once, and key amenities like the grocery store will remain on site, even as change occurs. In summary, this proposal will result in added housing supply at these 2 LRT stops, new ways to move safely around the site with public streets, new community public open spaces and parks, including a plaza directly connected to the corner, new community assets like a daycare and community space as part of Phase 1, and a range of sizes for retail units, including a focus on small units to ensure that this remains a place where people can meet their daily needs and where the spirit of local entrepreneurship can thrive. So I'd like to thank staff for their time in supporting this application and urge the committee to support the recommendations and outcome of this engagement and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Questions of the speaker? Seeing none? Councillor Nunziata.
Just on the daycare, because a lot of developments come in with daycare, would that be a city daycare or a private daycare?
I'm not sure that that's been determined at this stage. It's in the first phase, which is along Finch, but the second block of development, so there's still some time to figure that out.
Okay, and you have been in touch with Children's Services?
Yes.
Right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you all.
Our next speaker is Troy Boudou. So Troy, this is different than the other one. This is 1911 Finch Avenue, so the building.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to complement that deputation with mine. I am a resident from Jane and Finch. My whole life I've been living in this neighborhood. I think it's important to start off by saying this. Throughout my life and the experience of people around me, I've heard of all the frustrations people had with issues that they dealt with. And I've seen throughout my life a lack of communication with those people about the issues they have in those spaces. I've actually, through work, seen the opportunities where actual conversations with residents occurred and how residents' voices were dismissed because they didn't understand the technical components of a project. a frustration from residents that I know of, and the frustrations that I hear a lot, is when we are told in spaces that we're hearing a lot of the problems, but what are the solutions? And that becomes frustrating to us because we're talking to people who are in charge of solutions. And the reason why residents are telling you more about problems is because the understanding of the complexity of problems is clearly not communicated in one way. So we're showing you our lived experience of the issues we need to deal with. And when we're told we need the solutions to it, that is not what we're there for at that particular moment. We would love to bring solutions to the space. Because of this, there's been a group of residents, and there's a group of people throughout the history of the neighborhood, and probably in your neighborhoods as well, who decide to figure out the technical component. And there's a lot of people in that space. And I think it's important to recognize that. There was something that was presented at the last meeting here from our counselor who talked about, he asked a question. He talked about how the neighborhood was originally created and how when it was designed, people thought this was amazing. And then a few years later, people were recognizing that there was design problems and became an example of what not to do. And the question he posited was, how do we know what we're doing today will not have the same results that happened in the past? I think that's a very important thing, and we've been thinking about that for a long period of time. This is something that Regent Park is the great example of this happening, where we designed a community and then we realized, hey, something's wrong and we have to rethink about this. And a lot of people throughout, since the early 2000s, have been working on a real robust community engagement process there. And I think the city and the industry has recognized that a top-down approach to development does not work. Somebody in their corporate office trying to figure out how to build a community for a long period of time does not work. And we need to think with all the stakeholders in mind. And thesis of change that the industry is looking at, communities looking at, and the city, I think, is looking at is how do we talk to everybody to make sure we have a sustainable piece. I think that's the change here. I had the ability to work on this project around the community engagement component. The way it started was consulting people from Toronto Community Housing, who's been working on the Regent Park space, to think about a community engagement process. Those leaders identified a community member who's one of those unicorn people who are trying to figure out the technical and the lived experience component, and brought her onto the project because she, in her neighborhood, Fir Grove, didn't see real community engagement in that space and advocated with our counselor and other people to make real change. Shannon Holness is the person I'm speaking of there. Shannon brought me along in that process as well, because I was talking about the secondary plan and how we should have better community engagement process there. They brought us on this process, and we've been working for the last 2.5 years with the team to think about how we can authentically engage and listen to the voices of residents in that space. We brought on other residents, people who build nonprofits, who did a ton of work to make sure the voices of residents are actually heard and we can make some changes in that space. And throughout these years, we've been talking to communities. In the data that was shown before, talked to over 2,000 residents, had a bunch of community engagement sessions, but more importantly, workshops detailedly understanding what's going on in the space, understanding people's aspirations, their concerns, and how to mitigate the risk in these spaces. The design project, the development may look like a standard development process, but it is deeply rooted in this space. I think the level of engagement in Jane and Finch over the last between this process and the secondary plan process has shifted the way we're thinking about spaces and shifted the way we should be considering development for a long-term sustainable solution. How do we change what happened in the past of a community that we start off that sounds good, but then doesn't work out, is really thinking through all the different stakeholders. And I think we did this. I'm very proud of the work that we've done. And I just want to end with a quote that somebody from the neighborhood said once before. They said that a lot of people from the city come to Jane and Finch to give their solutions and ideas to the neighborhood. She wanted to see, this is Ruth from Jen Chosen, she wants to see the solutions that we have in our neighborhood that actually could change the city being implemented and taken. And I think with the two items, the secondary plan from the city and this process, we're showing how cities could be built differently, and it's actually reflecting the neighborhood and the concerns that we have to have a more long-term sustainable welcoming space for the residents in our neighborhood.
Thank you, Choi. Are there questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. I will ask, are there any other speakers on this particular item? All right. Questions of staff?
Again, I have, can we just stand this down for a few minutes and?
Okay, we'll stand that down and then we'll get back. Once we get through the order, we'll go back to the top of the order paper. Hopefully the motions are ready by then.
Perfect, yeah.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Pritchard. So we're going to stand that item down. We'll go to the next one. EY 14.3, which is 2400 Eglinton Avenue West, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications, decision report approval. Our first speaker is David Mackay from MHBC. Morning, David. Welcome.
Good morning, Councillor Holliday, members
you
of council.
5 minutes, please proceed as soon as you're ready.
I'll be very quick. I just wanted to say thank you to staff. We've worked diligently with them for the last, I'm going on probably 8 years on this project. 4 years since we submitted the applications to come up with a very interesting transit supportive mall redevelopment, the first phase of which is the zoning bylaw amendment for you. As I said, we worked diligently with staff to come up with a vision for this mall redevelopment that will support both the Eglinton LRT as well as the GO station that is under construction at the southeast corner of the site. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Maurice Bygrave. Is Maurice with us in the room? Great. Welcome, Mr. Bygrave.
Thank you very much.
You have 5 minutes. Please begin as soon as you're ready.
Okay. Members of the Etobicoke York Community Council, I am here as a tenant in the West Side Mall, 2400 Eglinton Avenue, since 1966. My name is Dr. Maurice Bygrave. I have been in a private practice as a dentist since 1966. Essentially, I have been a tenant in the West Side Mall from 1966 to present, with the exception of a couple of years when the original mall that was constructed around 1966 was demolished and the now present existence of what we have was constructed. I had to move and then relocate into what is now phase one of the development of the mall, which was already presented to council. And I think now the presentation is for the entire mall. If I may be wrong, but if that is so, I think that's my understanding. Over the years, as the new ownership of the mall changed, certain protections in our original lease became amended and changed and so forth to what it is present now. The mall was first opened around 1966. At that time, we had as members, as tenants, a merchants association. And the owner of the mall, the West Side Mall Development, they, along with the merchants, were part of this merchants association. And we had monthly meetings to promote the mall, encourage the neighborhood, and we were fairly successful with that type of arrangement. As a matter of fact, in early 1967, I was successful in bringing a promotion to the mall in preparation for the first Carabana Festival in 1967. We were able to utilize the merchants of the mall to sponsor this fundraising event. We had merchants like the Reitmans that provide fashions and costumes and so on for the models. We had Leonie's hairstylist that styled all the models. We had merchants like Batashu, Tip Top Tailors. They were all merchants in the mall. The mall was very successful in the 60s. We had visitors from Hong Kong, China to visit this mall because this was one of the first enclosed, encircled type of mall in this area. And so, and this is prior to the development of Yorkdale, let's say, for instance. As a matter of fact, the Merchants Association in 1967 donated $1,500 towards our event, which helped us to promote this big summer event, which is now still exists. The name may have changed over the years. It's still Caravana. In the early 70s, I was asked to be part of a citizens review committee. And the purpose of our coming together was to investigate the need for subway expansion for the city of Toronto. We were sponsored and subsidized by 3 of the major developers. And they provided us with secretarial service, accounting, and we were able to meet. We had meetings in each of we had meetings in the city of Toronto, we had meetings in Etobicoke, we had meetings in the city of York. At that time, it was the city of York. We had meetings at North York. We also had meetings in Scarborough. At the end of our meetings, we did provide a report as to our estimation for need for subway expansion, of which Eglinton Avenue was identified as the number 1. I know for sure that Shepherd Avenue was not as needed at the time based on our evaluation and surveys from the residents and so forth. And so as a result of that, you all know that we started the construction of the Eglinton Avenue subway.
Pardon me, Dr. Bygrave. Could I ask you to draw your remarks to a close?
Okay.
You're just over time.
I'm very sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. So the subway was started by Bob Ray, and then after that discontinued, which exacerbate the businesses on Eglinton. We also had the Allen Expressway, which was considered to be continued all the way to connect up with the Gardiner Lakeshore Expressway, and that also was discontinued, ended it at Eglinton, which did not help us. Okay, so over the years, the businesses has been exacerbated by these various changes. The provincial government.
Sir, if I could just get you to draw to a close.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
The provincial government offered some time ago some assistance. However, shortly after that announcement, we had to deal with COVID, and that sort of went on the back burner. I know Metrolinx has also offered to support the businesses, and that, in my estimation, has not benefited majority of our businesses.
Thank you, Dr. Bygrave.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask if any of my colleagues have any questions of the speaker? Deputy Mayor Morley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, and thank you for your attendance here today on this item. I hear there's been, a long history and a very rich history of the merchants in the mall here, and I just wondered if you could let me know what your position is on the approval report before us today.
My opinion on the presentation, I think it's a good one. It's for the future. Great. I think it will benefit the neighborhood.
Wonderful.
And I am happy to see. I'm in favor of progress.
In favor. That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Biden. Okay, I'll ask, are there any other speakers on this item? Seeing none. Questions of staff?
Yes, I have questions.
Councillor Nunziata?
Just to planning, just to make it clear, well, we did have a community meeting on this, is that it's not the entire mall, that it is in phases, if I can just clarify that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the report before you does speak to an official plan amendment dealing with the SAS to discuss the phasing and the block development related to the entire site, but the rezoning, which is part of this report, is only focused on phase one, the building before you, 35-story building.
Right, and I believe that some of the tenants that are in there will be accommodated in the future.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's part of a phasing plan.
It's part of the
through you, Chair.
phasing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions of staff? Seeing none. Councillor Nunziata to speak.
Yes, I will move the staff recommendation, and we did have a public meeting on this, and we do have an active BIA in that area, but unfortunately the BIA does not cover the mall portion. They're just from Kiel up, and and actually that item was at a city council a couple weeks ago about the bike lanes, and I deferred that because of the construction. But it is correct, there's a history to West Side Mall. Actually, I used to live in that area, but when I was the mayor, the subway along Eglinton was canceled in 1995. So when that was canceled, that changed a lot in that area. So right now, that whole area with the Eglinton line and the up and the go at Eglinton and Black Creek, there's a lot of interest in that area on revitalization. The BIA is working on that. We have a lot of vacant storefronts there, so we're hoping to occupy those vacant storefronts. So it really is, Eglinton and Kiel needs revitalization, and I think this application and the various phases, I think, will help the businesses in that area. So I am in support of the recommendation, and thank you for the deputy to be here. And it was a disaster in 1995 when that Eglinton line was canceled over Shepherd, which really had a huge effect in Eglinton. And it happened when I was mayor, so it was kind of disappointing. So I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendation. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that item carries. Okay, members, we are on EY 14.6, which is 58 Tallon Road. I'll just ask, is there anyone available to speak on 58 Tallon Road? Seeing none. Members, I'll speak very briefly on this item. I'm going to move the staff recommendations. I will thank you for your patience. You'll know that I deferred this item a couple of times. A couple of meetings ago, we had a deputation, and on that I asked the deputants to get in contact with me so I could investigate and look further, but we've heard nothing. And so we deferred it last meeting to give an opportunity, and here we have really only the report before us, so I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. We are now on EY 14.7, which is 94 Cowley Avenue, a request for fence exemption to Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. We have two speakers registered. The first is Ilya Milmar. Good morning, Ilya.
Good morning, Council.
Welcome to the Community Council. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. I don't think I would need that time, but
No problem.
I'll be quick. My name is Ilya. I'm the owner of 94 Cowley, along with my wife, Christina. We're seeking exemption for a vinyl fence on the north and the east side of the perimeter of our property. It's a vinyl fence, so I don't know if that's an issue to be taken up by the council. But on the west side of our property, there's already a vinyl fence that was exempt last year, so we're just continuing the same fence with the same contractor for the north and the east side.
Great.
That's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us today. we also have Christina listed. Did you want to speak, Christina, or did Ilya's covered it? Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions of staff? Seeing none, then I'll speak. I'll pass the chair over to Councillor Nunziata.
Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, members. If you dial back, this community council did approve a fence exemption for a vinyl fence for pool enclosure immediately next door to the home, as the residents described. I believe that they are just simply building something similar, and they need an exemption on the type of construction materials. I have spoken to MLS as they were before. They continue to be satisfied with the construction, and we know that vinyl fences aren't necessarily allowed in the code because they're not all equal, but in this case, MLS indicated their satisfaction. So I am pleased to move, and I should have done that at the start, to grant the exemption. So all those in favor on the alternate recs? Any opposed? That item carries. Thank you. That item is done. We are now on to EY 14.8, which is the Mimico Neighbourhood Mobility Plan. We have two speakers. The first speaker is Adam Rogers. Adam is online. Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council, Adam. I know you are familiar with our processes, but you have 5 minutes. Please begin as soon as you're ready.
Sure. I think my timer has to get reset. Oh, perfect. All right. I'll keep this very short. I appreciate how well the city staff has worked with local residents, from my awareness, on this project. Much needed steps in this community to help deal with excessive speeding. One thing I just wanted to note, that in the project notes, it's been noted that the need to improve the condition of the Royal York bike path from Newcastle to Lakeshore Avenue. It should be noted that 65% of Cold residents are in support of changes to improve safety on this stretch. Unfortunately, as we know, at Judson and Royal York about 3 or 4 years ago, a cyclist was sadly killed by a cement truck taking a right turn onto Judson. I think it's overdue for the city to do. We don't, obviously, I'd love them to just go right away and start it, but I know how processes works. Let's get a study done on improving the safety of the Royal York. Its community supports it. That stretch is in need. And I should add also, I think the city should then, when making that change, they should also start planning on the Judson bike path. As I say planning, I mean, go through the necessary studies, but let's get this done, ideally an amendment or something in council which directs staff to push this forward. Community supports it, much needed. And as I said, unfortunately, a cyclist, former teacher, lost their life tragically 4 years ago in this very stretch of Royal York. It is in dire need of upgrades. But again, I fully support this report. Good progress, and I just hope that we can move on this specific piece that was supported by the local community. I will stick around for 2 seconds if anyone has a question. Other than that, I will jump offline.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. Our next speaker is Eric Vanderwall. Is Eric available in the room or online? Eric is not. I'll ask, are there any other speakers on EY 14.8, Mimico Neighbourhood Mobility Plan? Seeing none. Questions of staff? No questions of staff to speak? Nope. Okay, hang on a sec. Members, we were able to locate Eric. Good morning, Eric. It's Stephen Holiday, Chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning, Eric. Welcome to Community Council. We can hear you. You've got 5 minutes. Please begin as soon as you can.
Good morning. Thank you. I would like to share a PowerPoint presentation just to quickly illustrate some of the comments that I would like to make. I'm being told that I currently do not have permission to share that content.
The clerks are advising it should be okay.
Okay, yes, I am able to do so now. Thank you very much. I hope you can see my screen.
We can, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. First and foremost, thank you very much to all who have been involved to date. I am largely in support of the recommendations, but would like to speak to part 3 and the streets that have been excluded from the recommended traffic calming measures, in particular Stanley Avenue. So the staff report already covers in some detail the existing conditions. So I'll just touch on this briefly. Seen here is a visual representation of those described characteristics. On the left, the study area outlined in red can be seen as the shortest route between Royal York and Lakeshore, particularly if avoiding traffic backups on Park Lawn and the Gardiner. The Mimico mobility plan originated from a resident-led petition for traffic calming on 5 streets that residents felt were heavily used as a shortcut, highlighted in orange on the right. These are 5 streets that were originally petitioned for traffic calming, with Stanley Avenue being the primary eastbound shortcut. City staff identified the need to evaluate adjacent streets to prevent traffic patterns from shifting to neighboring areas, and this is an initiative that I, of course, fully support. This became the expanded study area that we are familiar with today, outlined in red. Stanley Avenue has a long history of speed and volume-related traffic problems and resulting community advocacy. On the left, a signed letter from 35 of St. Leo's staff in support of traffic calming initiatives for Stanley Avenue. Top middle, this article is referring to the automated speed camera on Stanley Avenue in front of St. Leo's School as issuing the most tickets of any traffic camera in Toronto at the time this article was published. Top right, pictured in the background, is the Go Slow for Mimico block party that shut down Stanley Avenue for a day of protest. And the bottom right, or the bottom article references a traffic collision between a vehicle and a pedestrian that occurred also on Stanley Avenue. So on the left are the originally petitioned streets in orange, and on the right, the Mimico mobility plan results. Streets in blue are recommended for traffic calming with speed humps or cushions marked in black. As seen, the study suggests a need for extensive traffic calming beyond the initially petitioned streets, which again, I fully support. However, I am concerned about the lack of measures proposed for Stanley Avenue, which remains a thoroughfare still prone to high traffic volumes and speeds. I believe Stanley Avenue is a particularly deserving street for traffic calming, in addition to being included in the original residential petition for traffic calming measures. It contains several sensitive features. St. Leo's Church and Elementary School front directly onto this street. A little further down is a park with a playground that is not physically separated from the street, and directly across the street from the Mimico Public Library, which has a hidden parking entrance on the inside of a curve in the road. This entire section of Stanley Avenue is also a designated bikeway, having a shared bike lane and contraflow bike lane. The street also has a gradual downhill grade, increasing the likelihood of speeding. Furthermore, the street has the highest volume of traffic by far and is the only street in the study area that exceeds its intended design capacity, as acknowledged on page 13 of the report. I will also note that a pre-pandemic traffic study performed for Stanley Avenue found approximately 4,000 vehicles per day on this street. Lastly, traffic calming measures for this street should anticipate worsening traffic conditions, particularly as high density development from the Humber Bay Shores area expands. Already there is a 31-story condo proposed on Lakeshore Boulevard near the shortcut area, and another 36-story condo proposed at the other end of Stanley Avenue at Royal York, with several other potential condo sites along Lakeshore in this area. So in light of all of this, why hasn't Stanley been recommended for traffic calming? In review of the staff report, it appears that this is solely on a technicality, that the 85th and 95th percentile of speed have not been met. Despite this, it is clear the street is being used extensively by non-local traffic as a thoroughfare, and when compared to other streets that have met the warrant criteria for traffic calming, there's going to be a much higher total number of speeding vehicles on Stanley Avenue per day. Every vehicle that speeds down the street represents a safety concern for vulnerable road users, regardless of what the average vehicle speed may be. I feel this warrants the discretion of council to recommend traffic calming be implemented and address the speed and volume concerns for this street.
Thank you.
In summary, I would ask that the EYCC authorize the installation of traffic calming measures as already designed on attachments 29 and 30 of the report.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us today. I will ask, are there any other speakers on EY 14.8, Mimico Neighbourhood Mobility Plan? Seeing none, questions of staff. Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I just wanted to pull the thread from the deputant before us related to the Stanley Avenue considerations. And thank you for joining us today. Listen for this great work before us. Could you just talk us through a little bit about, and I know it is listed in the report on page 6, about some of those pieces, but if you could, for the record, share with us for our information.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. And through the speaker, when considering traffic calming, we're collecting data and looking at the existing conditions. So there are lots of different indicators that we're looking at. One of the things that we do is collect traffic studies to quantify the speed that cars are traveling. And what we found is that both the 85th percentile and the 95th percentile, so the speed at which 85% of all trips are traveling, the top speed, and 95 are below the threshold for what we would consider for traffic calming.
Thank you. That's helpful. And I'll speak to the item and moving a couple of motions as well that hopefully will provide some mitigating opportunities to the concerns that the deputant raised. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none to speak. Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the deputants for joining us today, and thank you to the community who has been incredibly patient and persistent in their engagement on this very important issue. As a community member myself, I recall the block party and a lot of the advocacy that took place, and what's before us represents an incredible amount of staff time, energy, and work in collaboration with our community, including a number of community consultations and a lot of deep engagement. So we're really proud of the report before us and look forward to supporting it. That said, I do have a few motions before us here, including a little bit of additional work for staff as we move forward with the implementation of this plan. So we are going to be recommendations 1 and 3 are motions that are adding new recommendations. So before you hear, it's adding investigate and expanding on-street permit parking, time within 500-meter radius of Royal York and Judson Street GO station, entrance within the study area, 12 a.m. to 10 a.m. So then you can see there how it reads. The second one is actually recommendation 2 is amendment to recommendation 6 in the report. So it speaks to a review of pedestrian crossing options at the intersection of Stanley and Elizabeth Street, as well as Mimico Avenue and Station Road, once the construction at St. Leo's Catholic School is completed. And then the third recommendation there is a request to the General Manager of Transportation Services to investigate opportunities for designated pickup and drop-off areas near our schools in the Mimico neighborhood. So I mentioned St. Leo's. John English is also one of our local junior middle schools. And so we're looking for additional work and consideration to make that work in the areas of Royal York Road, north of Lakeshore Boulevard, west of Louisa, and Manchester Park within the study area. So as I mentioned, we are really excited about the culmination of a lot of years of hard work and engagement from our community. We do look forward to the implementation of the Mimico Mobility Plan, and we'll continue to work very closely with staff and the local community to make sure that we're getting it right, making adjustments along the way as needed. So those are the motions before you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Morley. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none. On the amendment, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. And on the item as amended, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Okay, we'll go back up to the top of the list. We are at EY 14.1, Jane Finch Secondary Plan and Urban Design Guidelines Final Report. We have covered the deputations from the public. Questions of staff? Seeing none. Anyone wishing to speak on the item? Seeing. Okay.
Go ahead.
Deputy
Thank
Mayor
you.
Moore, go ahead.
Just want to let you have the final word here, Mr. Local Councillor. But I just wanted to say thank you to the deputants who came here today, and especially Troy, to speak to the important work about community engagement along these processes. As a community member myself who got engaged in early days around city building work, there was a huge divide to address as it related to, communities' understanding of city processes and sense of, participation and all of that good stuff. So I really do have a lot of respect and appreciation for the work that you mentioned, I believe Shannon, are doing in the neighborhood to bring residents along the journey of community building. We know how much it impacts all of us, and when we have our voices as part of the process, it really does support a better outcome. So I just wanted to say thank you to yourself, of course, the proponents on the plan here, and we'll turn it over back to Mr. Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Morley. To speak?
I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So, as you'll recall, this plan came before us some months ago, and I'd asked our staff to go back and take a look at some of the things that I thought, needed to change with respect to the plan. They went back. You have a supplementary report in front of you today that, to some degree, addresses some of those concerns which I initially raised. But I guess let me backtrack a second here. I want to thank as well all of the people that really went out of their way to do a great deal of work in developing the secondary plan for this neighborhood. Not only our staff, I know that they went out diligently applying themselves and engaging with local community. I know there were a lot of community members that to some degree participated in the formulation of the plan. Obviously, not all of their asks or requests are reflected in what's before us. Understanding that in the cobbling together of these very complex documents, there's a lot of moving parts, and one of the moving parts that for me is a bit of a deal breaker, and I just it's my own sort of personal dislike of very, very tall buildings, and it seems that that's a quality of this particular plan that to some degree is somewhat immovable. But I don't want to stand in the way of that and stand in the way of all of the work that a lot of people have done over a great deal of time. As you know, there's also an economic development component to this particular work. It's one of the first such endeavors that the city has undertaken across the city. So there's a lot of elements here, and there's a lot of thought that has gone into this exercise. And I'm hoping, as all of us are hoping in this neighborhood, that this is a leg up. That this, in fact, is pulls us up. To some degree, this is a neighborhood that has obviously gone through some very difficult challenges over time. We've been on sort of an ever-ending roller coaster ride, for the past 30, 40 years in this neighborhood, and we're hoping that now the roller coaster just begins to roll upwards and in dragging the rest of the community up. So I understand that. I appreciate that. I did have a series of motions with respect to heights, with respect to some of the employment lands to the on the western portion of the site, which I believe should be employment lands and not it's sort of a mixed use nature. So, but I'm not going to let my own personal view and sort of stand in the way of the work that that a lot of people have done over a great deal of time. So while I'm not going to support the plan, I'm not going to stand in the way of it. So you'll not. I will not be moving the motions I have here as well.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will move the supplementary report. Okay, all those in favor of the supplementary report? Any opposed? That item carries. Pardon me? No, okay, then I think you do want to, do we want a recorded vote on the whole item? The clerk advises it's a single
On
vote.
the item as amended.
All right, apologies, clerk. If there's only one vote on the item, then we'll make it recorded.
So there's only one vote. We'll put the motion up on the screen. It's a motion to amend the item by adopting the supplementary, the recommendations in the supplementary report. All those in favor? Councillor Morley, Councillor Holliday, Councillor Nunziata. Any opposed? Councillor Perruzza. That motion carries.
Thank you. Our next item is EY 14.2, which is 1911 Finch Avenue West, Jane Finch Mall, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications, decision report, approval Ward 7. I believe we have completed the public speakers. We are at questions of staff. Seeing none, members wishing to, Councillor Nunziata.
Yeah, just one of the recommendations, which I don't quite understand, recommendation 7 about the acceptance of on-site parkland dedication subject to the owner transferring the parkland to the city.
Through Mr. Chair, perhaps Daniel Hahn or PFR could answer that more accurately than me.
Yeah, because I've never seen that, because I know I have a few in my ward and there's a big issue. Yeah, yeah, sorry.
So Chair, yeah, that's a pretty standard recommendation. Some typically we included, and maybe in the past we haven't, but now it's a typical standard recommendation where we want the park conveyed free and clear, meaning unencumbered, like no parking underneath it, no easements on it, that kind of thing.
So that would be park dedication at another site?
No, on this site here.
On this site?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? I was going to make a really quick one, just based on some correspondence, so I'll pass the chair.
Councillor Holiday.
Okay. There's a letter from Sobeys that in here, and they ask about construction management plans, and they noted that it wasn't necessarily connected with the official plan amendment. Without going into all of the details, can you just offer comment to the community council about where and when construction management plans apply, and how the concerns from Sobeys might be covered?
Mr. Chair, the standard requirement is for Through the chair. The standard requirement is for a construction management plan to be submitted at site plan. So through the submission of a site plan control application, we would expect a construction management plan or CMP to be included as a required submission.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Members wishing to speak? Okay, then I will move the supplemental report. Yeah. Yeah.
There's no supplemental report on this one.
Sorry, the clerk's just getting something up on the screen.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, you're right. Sorry, yeah.
So the first motion is to amend the item with the recommendation contained in the supplemental report. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And I'll move to adopt the item as amended, and that is a recorded vote.
All those in favor of the item as amended, Councillor Morley, Councillor Holliday, Councillor Nunziata. Any opposed? Councillor Perruzza. That item carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That concludes our items of business today, with the exception of the introduction of bylaws. Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that bills 512 to 517 and 528, prepared for the June 3rd, 2024 meeting 14 of the Etobicoke York Community Council, be declared as bylaws and passed, subject to Section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Should be one more. Go ahead.
Moving that confirmatory bills to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Etobicoke York Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 14 on June 3rd, 2024, be declared as bylaws and passed, subject to Section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Madam Clerk, that is all of our business for the day, and therefore the meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.